Expectations couldn't have been higher for Metroid Prime 4. It was one of the first games announced for the original Switch in 2017, before going into 8 years of development under different studios. And shortly before its release, a remake of Metroid Prime 1 literally became one of the highest rated games of the generation. So the new game had even more to live up to. The original is still a masterclass in immersive game design. It was up to the players to use their own wit to conquer a big hostile alien labyrinth with a moody atmosphere of isolation. So there was understandable disbelief and backlash when previews of Prime 4 showed quippy side characters that told you what to do.
To reach the next tower, you'll need to open the big door in this room.
Ironically, with my expectations lowered, the game did surprise me early on, before slowly squashing all my goodwill again. And one core element is responsible for that, but it wasn't the new characters. Make no mistake, social media style meta dialogue has no place in an atmospheric series like Metroid, but there was enough quality early on to ignore that. Now, Metroid Prime 4 might be the most linear game of the franchise. There are 5 dungeons and most of them are structured like straightforward hallways. The branching paths are very simple and even the optional items are poorly hidden. However, even that in itself isn't a major flaw. One key element of Prime was the interaction with your surroundings. While linear, many rooms in Prime 4 still have to be investigated for clues, or they require Samus's spacesuit abilities to overcome dangerous hurdles. And I was positively surprised that the NPCs don't spoil the puzzle solutions. As a linear action adventure like Tomb Raider or something, this can still work. Whenever you solve escape rooms or explore isolated tombs, it feels like Metroid. And the presentation plays a big part too. If nothing else, the music is where Prime 4 truly evolved after such a long hiatus. The sound of Prime was all about melancholic themes, mixed with a touch of the extraterrestrial. The 4th game doesn't just copy that style, it comes up with new ways to make it feel otherworldly. Banking on deliberately distorted orchestra and beats reminiscent of those old theremin sounds from black and white sci-fi films. It's unique and it works. The soundtrack ramps up depending on whether you're inside or outside a facility or when you trigger a key mechanic within a dungeon. If the game had stuck to linear set pieces where the puzzle design matched the presentation like in the first couple of dungeons, this could have been a standout title. Sadly, Prime 4 isn't actually fully linear. They tried to bring back the series' signature backtracking, but in the worst way possible. And this is the crux of Prime 4. Backtracking and so-called exploring have been pushed into a gigantic field of nothingness. Look, I can take a barren hub world. No More Heroes is one of my most replayed games, and if you know that game, you know what that means. So I'm confident in saying this. The open air map in Prime 4 might rank among the worst ever made for a big production. Visually, it looks at least one generation behind all the other areas, and there's no music to save the atmosphere either. It also doesn't have any activity apart from the occasional alien bird to shoot, and besides all that, it simply isn't fun to control the bike. Yet that's where you spend most of your time in the second half of the game. Instead of finding your electro beam, for example, you have to traverse from one end of the map to the other multiple times, go through already cleared dungeons, and then back to your base so the Marine Mackenzie can activate it. Backtracking is a core part of the Metroidvania genre, but here it never feels natural. It's pure artificial bloat. And if it wasn't tedious enough, you'll have to destroy hundreds of these green rocks in the field, awkwardly circling around them with your janky bike. Otherwise, you can't reach the final boss. The hub world is also where the NPCs are the most intrusive. In the dungeons they are silent, but here they will tell you where to go all the time, over and over, further making this entire open map redundant.
You might want to go back and check if there's anything you missed. Have you checked out the volcano?
Also, this is me speculating, but it feels like they ran out of puzzle ideas after a while. The thing is, Prime wasn't a shooter, but more of an adventure like Zelda, where combat was secondary and boss fights were almost like big puzzles. The bosses remain decent in Prime 4, but later on, there's a growing number of unimaginative shootouts which just aren't engaging with those adventure controls. Maybe these sections wouldn't have been needed if they'd spent those resources on more puzzle-heavy areas instead of that terrible hub world. It's hard to understand how this kind of game structure was just hand-waved during development. But whatever the reason, the result remains the same. What begins as a game with a very strong identity, despite being different from prior titles, eventually hits one of the biggest drops in quality imaginable halfway through.